Well, hello there, guys and gals. Jack here with the beginning of another week of Miyagi Mornings. And I thought this would be a good day to lead off a week with some discussion on getting what you want out of life. A lot of what I teach and a lot of what I've taught over the last 13 years of doing the Survival Podcast and running, a YouTube channel and a video channel and stuff like that has been about this. It's something that I talk about all the time. And I was just kind of mulling over what to talk to you guys about today when I was out this morning taking care of the ducks' water, checking on the gardens, everything like that, and realizing, I do something a lot of people throw the phrase around a lot, and that is I live life on my own terms. My life is on my own terms. It's an incredible blessing to have gotten here. And what it made me think of is how many times I've had this experience in real life, not just in online forums and, email and stuff like that, where a person will say something and be like, you know what I want to do? I want to live my life on my own terms. And generally that'll come up because we're talking about, kind of the whole ethos of the Survival Podcast. And the way that I've tried to demonstrate that over the years, how to do that. And I don't mean to be mean when I do this, but I'll often throw things at people that are designed for their benefit, but maybe aren't the most comfortable things when they're first said. So my number one response to that is, that's great. What are your terms? That's great. What are your terms? And usually you get this blank stare, kind of a deer in the headlight look, like, oh my God, he asked me what my terms were, and I don't know. That's okay. Most people don't know. And then what comes next is what I would refer to as a great start. The person realizing the uncomfortable nature of making a definitive statement, I want life on my own terms, then being told, that's excellent. What are those terms? And not having an answer realizes, well, shit, I better say something because it's an awkward silence. And it's one of those questions that when I ask it, I refuse. It's like a closing question in sales, like a sales close. When you say something like, well, can we get a PO or can I get you to sign the contract or whatever in sales, the rule is you don't say anything until they fully either execute the contract or they start asking questions that you have to answer, right? So you shut up. And so there's other places in life, and that's one of them, where it's a question like, the question is not designed to make me look good. It's designed to make you think I shut up. So since I won't say anything, they have to say something. And this is done consciously, and what starts to happen is a whole big list of things they do want and they don't want in their life. And that's a great way to define the terms, but that's not your terms. And that will never get you there. It's only a starting place. So I'll usually say to that person once they kind of, I want no debt. I want to, do a job that I love that I would do anyway for free. I want enough money to never worry about money, etc. It's great. Why don't you sit down and get a piece of paper and put a big cross across the top of it. And on one side put wants and on the other side put don't wants and start working that list. That'll be a good roadmap to get you to your terms. It won't be your terms because your terms are going to require certain things. They're going to require a certain amount of money. They're going to require lifestyle adjustments and changes, etc. And as soon as you start to do this, then you can start quantifying. Well, how much does that cost to do that? So how much income do I need? How much investment do I need to produce X percent of that ongoing cash flow so that I can get into a point of semi-retirement young? Instead of working my whole life and fully retiring when I'm old, doesn't it make sense to work really hard and by the time you're 40, be halfway retired? You still have income in, you're still saving for that long-term retirement, but there's enough cash flow out of your life that your life's funded or partially funded. How do you know what that looks like if you don't actually get the numbers? And I've seen the same phenomenon in so many places where it's not really the same thing, but it's the same thing. It's, in the words of Tommy Chong, one of my favorite phrases, it's the same but different, man. So a person will say something like, I'm going to make enough money with a backyard flock of ducks by selling eggs to pay for insert thing here. Well, what's that look like? They don't know. Okay, so what do you think you can sell eggs for? What do you get for them in your market? What's it going to cost you to produce one egg? See, if you know those two things, is it marketable? And if it is, what it sells for, and how much my cost of goods sold will be, then you have a number. And then you can really quickly say, well, if I need $700 in profit a month, I need, Y amount of eggs. Y equals number here. And then you can look at that and go, yeah, that works. That's a lot of shit to do for $700. There's other ways to make that money. And then you make a fully informed decision about the path forward, because you don't really want a backyard full of ducks if that's where you're coming at it from. Maybe you do, right? And maybe there's other ways. Maybe you have less ducks and you don't try to make your money off of that. Maybe you just try to get them to pay for themselves because you want the ducks because you want to eat eggs and you want to have ducks, like me, right? You determine the financial goal more dispassionately. Like, yeah, that works or that doesn't work, and then you know the answer. And so that goes right into living life on your own terms and defining them first, and then back engineering what does the lifestyle look that gets me there? What do I have to give up right now? What do I have to do right now? And what is my timeline to that place? It's really simple. And it's no different than looking at how do ships every day, giant ships, captain and crew, leave a place like Shanghai, China. They go across the ocean and they land in San Francisco. And they turn around and they go back. With all the things in the middle that could be wrong. Usually that ship pulls into port. It's already scheduled to dock before it leaves its old port. And it arrives at that place at the right time 99.9% of the time. Sometimes there's some delays and adjustments due to weather or things. But in general, that shipping is very regularly timed. How do they do that? Well, they know exactly where they are, exactly where they're going, how fast the ship moves, the route that they're going to take, and because of all that information, an experienced captain can plot the course and say, we're going to be there Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So simple that is. So why don't we do that in our lives? And I'll tell you, and this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. We don't want to know the answer. We don't want to be real about the answer. Because it's easier to dream than to be real. And we don't want to pop our bubble. With this little bubble that we have around us of this dream. And there's good in dreaming because it keeps you motivated. But if the dream is not realistic, then the dream is more of like, if I win the lottery someday, I'm going to own a Caribbean island, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to get there. Or it's going to take some sort of weird coincidence of luck that you're going to get there, right? These are concrete, attainable things that most of us really want. If you say, I want to live my life on my own terms, I promise you there's a way to get there. I promise you. And there's a way to get mostly there in 5 to 10 years, solidly there in 15. And unless you are really old and don't have much time left, or your dreams or your terms are ridiculous, like I want to be a 500,000 gazillionaire or something like that, most people can have a life on their own terms absolutely within 15 to 20 years. Whoa, 15 to 20 years, that's a long time. Well, it's a lot less than the 30 to 40 years the average person works to retire with no money, isn't it? And I'm not saying you can't go faster, but I'm saying when you baseline it the first time, you're going to end up looking out at a 15 to 20 year plan. Well, no one wants to do that. Everybody wants to dream about someday, and so someday's like this carrot the donkey's following, but is the donkey ever going to get the carrot? Maybe when he's old and he's about to fall over, the person that's lured him with the carrot the whole time will take some pity on him and take the nasty rotted carrot and break it off the thing and actually let the donkey have the carrot. That's how most people retire. They never live life on their own terms. In fact, they find out that this dream that they had of someday living life on their own terms as a retiree is the time where they have the least influence and control in society. And since they have just enough money to survive on, they don't really have a lifestyle they want. They end up dependent on their children or friends or organizations or things like that. They don't have the golden years that they were promised because they waited too long to start the process to get there. And they've been lulled into believing, hey, just throw money in your 401k and don't worry about it, was the process. Where the process was a lot more proactive if you really wanted to live life on your own terms. So if you just start defining the place you want to live, what does it look like? What is there? How much land is there, etc.? What are the people like around it? All of a sudden, it starts to become very clear that, hey, here's some places like that. Here's what property costs there. Now, do I really want that? Do I want the sacrifice? Or do I need to adapt and adjust? Because I love when somebody says, none of my terms are negotiable. If God was looking at you in the face when you said that, he would laugh so hard, God would give himself a headache if you said none of your terms are negotiable. All your terms must be negotiable at all times, because that is how you actually get most of what you want, instead of trying to get all of you want and getting none of it. So the real reason people put this process off is they don't want to look at it. They want it to be comfortable and they want it to feel good. I don't want you to do that. Not because I don't want you to be comfortable, and not because I don't want you to feel good, but I want you to actually get what you want. And you're not going to do that until you put down concrete goals. And I don't, mean like, if you just write that one day you're going to be the leader of, the free world, you will be, or some stupid karmic, misappropriated law of attraction BS. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you actually sit down and do the work and you define what you really want, anybody with an IQ over 90 can reverse engineer, learn how to use something like Excel, and design a model that gets there. Anybody can. I mean, anybody. But will you? What it's going to involve is taking the dream that is here and putting it out here, and putting a concrete model here that leads to it. That's what you're going to have to do if you want to get there. With that, it's been Jack with another episode of Miyagi Mornings. I'll be back tomorrow with something totally different.